Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Montoya. Alright, so in today's tutorial I'm going to be teaching you how to do a half circle skirt that is maxi length. And in addition, it has pockets. And as always, you can go ahead and click on the time markers down below to pick up where you left off, or to fast forward through what you may already know and go ahead and jump into the different parts that you may want to see. So use those time markers. I have them in the description box, and I also have them in the comment section for you all. Also, if you have used any of my tutorials to create a garment, I would like for you to share them with me, because one thing that I want to start doing on my Instagram is giving shout outs to people who have used my tutorials to create garments, and also I want to start displaying those at the end of videos. I just want to give you a shout out to show this is what people have made using my tutorial, and yeah, just to put you on display. So if you would like to be featured here on my channel or on my Instagram, go ahead and send me an email, send me a direct message saying that you would like to be featured, because I get pictures but I don't want to post your image if I do not have your permission. So if you send me your picture, please go ahead and give me permission to share it on my YouTube channel or via any social media outlet that I may have. And yeah, I just want to show all of the beautiful creations that I have been receiving through different social outlets. I want to go ahead and share those. So even if you've already sent me a picture, send me the same one again, but this time just say that I have your permission to share your image, and yeah, just share it with the world. All right, let's go ahead and jump into the materials that you will need. All right, so the first thing we want to do is figure out our radius measurement. So what you want to do is measure around your belly button, so your navel area. So for me that is 28 inches, and you want to add 1 to that. You want to add 1 inch of ease, so that gives me 29. So where it says waist measurement, I'm going to find the line that says 29 and follow that over, and that's going to give me my radius. Alright, so the first thing that we're going to do is, using the factory edge, so that's the straightest edge on your paper, we are going to create a seam allowance. So from the edge you want to measure away 5/8 of an inch all the way down. So I went ahead and drew over my line that was in pencil and Sharpie so you all can see, and then I shaded in the seam allowance so you can see that as well. Next, what we're going to do is from this corner here, so at the edge where our seam allowance is, we're going to now begin measuring out our radius from this point here. So for me that is 8 1/4. So I'm going to measure down and begin making dots. Now, still keeping my ruler in this corner here, I'm going to continue working my way around. Be sure to add a radius dot in your seam allowance as well. Alright, after all of your dots have been drawn, go ahead and begin connecting the dots. Alright, so this is an up-close view of how to do the radius and the seam allowance. So when I say to use the factory edge, it's the edge that you did not cut. So when you bought the paper, which side was unaltered and you did not cut yourself. From that edge, you want to measure over the 5/8 of an inch seam allowance. So on my ruler, I'm just going to use it as a guide. And then you can just shade that in for your reference so you know that this is seam allowance. Then when you're going ahead and marking your radius, so for me that was 8 3/4. When I begin making my marks, I'm going to start in this corner here to make my marks. Not over there in the seam allowance. You want to start right here. So then from this corner, I'm going to measure down my 8 3/4 of an inch. And I'm still going to keep the edge of my ruler here with the corner. Alright, and even when you mark in the seam allowance, you still keep the edge of your ruler or your tape measure. You're still going to keep it in this corner here. You're not moving the corner into the seam allowance at all. Alright, so at all times make sure that you're beginning your radius measurement from this corner. Alright, the next thing we're going to do is our skirt measurements. So we need to determine the length. So what you want to do is measure from your belly button down to where you want your skirt to stop. So for me that is 42.5 inches. Then you want to take what you wrote on line 1 and write it again here. So just transferring down that 42.5. And then I need to add 1.5 inches for my waistband and my hem seam allowance. So I'm going to add that, and that gives me 44 inches. So the length of my skirt needs to be 44 inches. So I did note that depending on the width of your fabric, it may restrict you from doing the length that you desire. So for instance, I wanted a length of 44 inches, but since I'm using fabric that has a width of 45 inches, once I put my pattern piece on there, it did not fit because I also had to include the radius in that length, and it just did not work out. So what I ended up doing was making my pattern piece anyway, and then I modified the pattern piece. So what I had to do was, I noted it here that I ended up cutting my pattern piece by 2 inches. Because I constructed the pattern piece and then I put it on my fabric and I saw, you know what this is, my pattern piece is hanging off. And then I saw that it was hanging off about 2 inches or so. So I just cut my pattern piece by 2 inches. And yeah, so I just went ahead and modified it. Using 60-inch, I'll probably use 60-inch fabric next time, but y'all know I love my wax prints, so I just had to make it work, and it still came out fine. It doesn't touch the ground like I would have liked, but that keeps my hem from getting dirty, so it worked out for me. But yeah, so please do note that. Alright, now from your radius mark, you want to measure down the length of your skirt. So for me that is 44 inches. So starting in my seam allowance, I'm going to begin measuring down 44 inches and I'm going to make a dot. And I'm going to keep pivoting still keeping my measuring tape at the bottom of my radius. I'm going to keep pivoting around and measuring down my length. Alright, after you have all of your dots drawn, go ahead and begin connecting the dots. And I'm first starting off sketching with my pencil, and then I will go over it with my Sharpie so that you all can see. Alright, next go ahead and grab your scissors and cut along the radius mark. The next thing you want to do is we're going to take our pattern piece, we're going to fold it. Now, we're not folding it exactly in half. You want to take the edge where the seam allowance is not, and you want to fold it. You want to take the side that does not have the seam allowance, and you want to fold it over to meet the line, not the edge of your seam allowance, but the line where your seam allowance begins. See, I have the edge lined up here, but my seam allowance is still exposed. And you particularly want to make sure that the corners of your pattern piece line up. And then you can begin to fold that into place. Alright, after you have that folded, go ahead and open your paper back up. Grab your scissors, and we're going to cut along, right along that crease. Alright, next we're going to label our pattern piece. Go ahead and label it half circle skirt. And you can write cut 3 and put front on fold and put 2. We'll put 1 front, 2 back. Alright, and next we are going to put some notches here for our side seams. So what you want to do is take your ruler, and I'm just drawing a line, and then I'm going to draw another line about 1/2 inch away. And we will mark these notches in our side seam, so when we get ready to sew, we know which side is the side seam. Then the next thing you want to do is mark the fold. So first let's mark our zipper stop before we write cut on fold. So what you want to do is from the top of your skirt pattern piece, you want to measure down your zipper stop length. So for me that was 9 inches. So from the top I'm measuring down 9 inches, and about 5/8 of the way in I'm going to draw a dot. And then you can make a note to yourself just in case you forget later on, and you can put zipper stop. All right, and the next thing, also along this edge, you want to write cut on fold. So you know that this is the edge that you will be lining up with the fold of your fabric. And one last thing, you can put back, so you can remember that this is for your back pattern piece only. Next, for our waistband measurements, so you have to determine what size width do you want your waistband to be. Do you want 1.5 inches, 2 inches, or 3? My preference is always 2 inches. I want my final waistband to be 2. So what I need to do then is cut out a pattern piece that is 5 inches in width when I'm doing my pattern. So if you want yours to be final waistband of 3 inches, then your pattern piece needs to be 7 inches total in width. Next, for the length of your waistband, you need to measure around your navel, or around your belly button. So for me, that is 28 inches. And then you need to add 2 inches to that. So that gives me a total of 30. Now we're adding 2 because we're accounting for that 1 inch of ease that we added for our radius, plus we need zipper seam allowance. So that's why we're adding a total of 2 inches. So, all right, go ahead and lay out your pattern paper and make sure that it is long enough for your waist measurement, a little bit longer than your waist measurement. Now go ahead and take your pencil. I'm going to use my Sharpie so you all can see. And first we're going to measure the width of our waistband. Now I want my waistband to be 2 inches thick, so I'm going to do the 5-inch width. Now my length is going to be 30 inches. So I'm going to measure down 30 inches. Alright, so I'm going to finish drawing my length measurement, and then once I am done drawing my length, then I'm going to draw my width again of 5 inches, and then I will close this up. Go ahead and label this pattern piece as waistband. Alright, so we need to find the halfway point on our waistband. So go ahead and halfway down your waistband. So for me, half of 30 is 15. So I'm going to make a mark at 15. This is the center front that we will meet up with our skirt piece. Alright, so we need to measure, now we need to find the halfway point on both of our sides. So since we have the halfway point for 5 inches would be 2.5 inches. So I'm going to measure down 2.5 inches. And I'm going to make a mark. Also on the other side, I'm going to measure down from the top down 2.5 inches. And I'm going to mark that. Alright, when we get ready to sew our zipper, this is where the starting point when we get ready to attach our zipper. Now go ahead and cut out your waistband. Alright, so right now I have my fabric on the fold here, and I have it folded in half, and I have the selvage edge up here, and I have the selvage down here. Now I went ahead and laid out my pattern piece, and I'm going to line up the side where we wrote cut on fold with the fold of my fabric here and pin in place. When pinning, I like to start off by pinning in all the major corners first, and then I like to add additional pins where needed. Next, go ahead and grab your scissors and cut this out. Next thing you want to do is go ahead and mark your side notches. And one last thing, right here on the fold of your fabric, we want to make a snip right there. So I'm just lifting up my pattern piece, and right in the fold of the fabric, I'm making a snip about 1/4 of an inch deep. Okay, this is going to mark our center front when we get ready to attach our waistband. Alright, now we need to cut out our 2 back pieces. So what I'm going to do is flip my pattern piece over to the back. And where the side that it says cut on fold, we're not cutting on the fold, but you want this line to be parallel with the fabric. And the reason why I flipped it over to the back is because I'm going to use all of this space here to cut out the waistband and the pockets. So I'll cut out, I'll cut out my waistband and then the 4 pockets. So by flipping our fabric over, it's helping us to save space here to maximize our fabric. So once you have it flipped, you can go ahead and pin it in place. Next, go ahead and grab your scissors and cut this out. Alright, go ahead and mark your 2 side notches. And then find that dot that we made to mark our zipper stop. Take a pin, place it through that large dot that you made. Then flip over the pattern paper. And right where that needle is coming out, go ahead and make a dot. Flip all of your fabric over, and where the pin is coming out, make another dot. Alright, go ahead and lay out your remaining fabric and take your waistband, lay it right on top. Grab your pins and you can go ahead and begin pinning this down in place. Next, go ahead and grab your scissors and cut this out. Alright, next we need to go ahead and mark our center front. So right where we drew that snip, go ahead and snip into your fabric about 1/4 of an inch deep. Also here on the side, go ahead and make a snip there. And on the other side, go ahead and make another snip. Alright, next we need to cut out a total of 4 pockets. So I took some of my scrap fabric and I have it folded over. And so now I have 2 layers of fabric. Next, go ahead and pin your pattern piece in place. Alright, and then we need to go ahead and mark our 2 notches on our pockets. Alright, and you want to repeat this process one more time. Laying your pattern piece on 2 layers of fabric, cutting it out, and transferring your notches. Alright, now you should have a total of 4 pocket pieces.